Right now. Football is back, but I'd rather not talk about that because neither team that I pull for is worth anything right now, so that's kind of tough. But it's also important because September is, for us, for Shayna and I, September marks 6 years we've been here at Faith Moncks Corner. In fact, our very first Sunday was September 1st, 2013. That was our very first Sunday here at the Moncks Corner campus, and it feels like we've been at Moncks Corner a whole lot longer than 6 years. And I don't mean that like in a negative way, like in the relatives at holiday time, where you're like, is it time for you to go yet? But I mean like it's been good. We've enjoyed it. We love you guys. We love the community. This is really home for us, and we can't believe that 6 years has just gone by like that, even though it kind of feels a little bit longer for us. And so this has been a great place for us to be. When we first came, we had hopes and visions, and we had dreams that we believe God had given us, and it was really like overwhelming at first when we came and saw the campus and where we were at and what we believe God wanted us to do. And I think that's one of the frustrating things sometimes about God is that he lets you see glimpses of a vision. He lets you see a little bit of the dream, but he doesn't let you see everything. I mean, rare is the moment where God lets you see the entire gamut. Normally, he'll let you see part of it and kind of get a chance to see everything really all at once. And I think that's on purpose because, you know, if God lets you see everything, you may look at that journey and you may look at that dream and that vision and say, wow, that's really cool that God's going to bring us there. But I see all the stuff I got to go through, and God, like, I love you, but really, like, I'm out. Like, no way. I'm good. I think most of us would not choose the path that God calls us to if we saw all of the hurdles and trials and things we'd have to deal with on the way to the end result of that dream or that goal that he has for us. And so it's probably a good thing he only shows us glimpses of what might be out there. And here's the thing about humanity, right? I think we differ from God in this respect as well, though we see everything as yesterday, today, and tomorrow. 3 segments, right? Past, present, future. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But God, he doesn't see things in that manner. In fact, God really, he exists outside of time when you think about it, and he sees everything as one continuum. There is no yesterday, today, and tomorrow for God. He just sees things as they are. He sees them all at once on the same plane. And that means this, that he sees not only the start of your hopes and your dreams and the vision, he sees how you'll get there. He even sees how they'll come to an end as well. He gets the privilege to see all of that. Hebrews chapter 13, there's a really important verse that I want to bring to your attention here today. Now, the author of Hebrews, it's a letter in the New Testament written to Jewish believers, Jewish Christians, and we don't know who wrote the letter, but the chapter 13 is the very end. And it's kind of like the editors who put your Bible together, they call it, concluding remarks, because there's really no rhyme or reason to chapter 13. It's kind of like the author was writing this letter and he had all kinds of great linear thinking, and then it gets to the very end and it's kind of like, oh man, this is really important. And by the way, that's important and you should really know this. And so there's kind of like different things all put together in 13 that kind of don't run together necessarily. It's kind of like random thoughts almost he's trying to get in before he's finished with the letter. But in chapter 13, verse number 8, there's a really important verse that I think defines who God is, defines really the nature of his vision and plan, and really kind of the essence of God. And it's this, that he never, ever, ever changes. And God never changes. That God is always the same. He's always a constant. He is the same in the past, the present, and the future. And the author says in Hebrews 13:8, he says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, he's the same today, and he's the same forever or tomorrow. He will always be the same. It will never change. Let's pray this morning. Father, we love you today. And I thank you for your word, and I thank you for the message that you have for our hearts. Lord, I pray this morning as we talk about those yesterdays and todays and tomorrows, may you stir something inside of us today, I pray. God, may you awaken something inside of us. May we realize how constant you are, how you never change, no matter what we face, no matter what may change in our lives. Lord, you are the one constant we can hang our hats on. We thank you for what you're going to do inside of us here this morning. We ask all of this, Father, in your name. Amen. So Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Or for our purposes here, you might say tomorrow, another way to look at forever. And it's a powerful verse, really, that you find here in Hebrews 13. I think it's one of the most powerful verses in all of Scripture. Because through all the changes which come to our world, our lives, this church, that one constant will always be Jesus. He's always the same. He never changes. And he's in our yesterdays, our todays, and he's in our tomorrows. Here's the thing about our yesterdays. All of us have them, right? Everyone's got a yesterday. Everybody's got a past. Some of those yesterdays we make out to be a lot better than what they probably are. You know, like I had the privilege last weekend of going home, and I was golfing with my dad and one of my younger brothers. I don't get to do that much, and so we're out there on the golf course, and every golfer might as well be a fisherman, because every golfer, no matter who you're golfing with, there's a story about this incredible shot. You would never believe, I had this shot on the third hole, and I was this far from the hole-in-one, or I had this drive. And it's funny because all the guys you're telling the story to, they weren't there when you had the shot. So you're making it better than what it really sounds. You know, some of our yesterdays, as good as they were, we make them a little bit better sometimes than what they actually were, right? And then sometimes, you know, we all have a bad yesterday too, and then sometimes those bad yesterdays, we make them out to be a little bit worse than what they were. You know, we do that too, kind of an opposite angle there. But we all have those yesterdays. Some of them are full of great and exciting moments, and some are painful, and some have losses and defeats, and others have victories in them. But nevertheless, we all have a yesterday. And think for a moment how God was in your yesterday. Think about how God was present in your yesterday. What did he teach you yesterday? What did he show you yesterday? What did he rescue you from yesterday? How was God at work in your yesterday? I think one of the really cool things about being a Christian is that you can look back and you can see that even though you were far from God, you were as far as you could get, you can look back and you can see the work of God in your life when you didn't even know he was at work. He was protecting you, and he was saving you, and he was positioning you and changing you and developing you. You can look back and see all the places where you didn't know it at the time, but God was present, already working on your behalf in your yesterday. We all have them. This church has a yesterday. Some of you know the yesterday this church has, some of y'all don't, but over 40 years ago, a small group of people met in a home in Somerville. And that small group began to grow, and it grew to about 150 individuals. And they had this young pastor, this pastor in his early 30s named Larry Burbacher. Came down from Ohio, became the lead pastor of this church called Faith. And the building is still on Royal Road in Somerville today. You can go to it. And ironically, another church called Faith is there. But they're in that building and that yesterday, and God was already at work, and he was orchestrating and changing things and positioning things, even from the moment that he arrived all those years ago, to get where Faith is today, where we're 3,500 and counting people and 9 campuses all around the Low Country right now. God was in all of that, getting everything ready for where we are today. This campus has a yesterday as well. The first campus pastor who came to Faith Monks Corner was a man named Sam Elliott. Very few of you in the room know who he is. In fact, I'm looking around the room right now. Maybe 2 or 3 of you might know who Sam Elliott actually was. But he was the first campus pastor here at Faith Monks Corner. There was no kids building. There was no, you had gravel parking lot. There was no overhang out front. So you baked in the sun as you're walking into church, on a Sunday morning. And Sam came and he helped lay a foundation here. In fact, helping Sam was a little-known worship leader named Brian Vanoy, who would go on to become the Revive worship pastor, and now today he's our Faith Ridgeville campus pastor. That all happened yesterday. And then we came along not long after Sam was here. A couple years he was here, and then we came, September 1st, 2013. 27 years old. We were some 20-something kids coming in, and all I had known is youth pastoring. And we came on our very first Sunday here. We built on the foundation that was already laid for Sam Elliott, and I've never forgotten that. Even though most of us, the vast majority, don't know who he is, I remember. And we built on that foundation that Sam had already laid, and we had a good old whopping 27 folks my first Sunday here. I remember asking the guy who counted. I looked him in the eye and said, "Is that just adults? That's adults and kids." And I said, "Count it again. Maybe might be 29. We might be missing 2 somewhere. Like, let's go." 27 people. That was exciting. That first Sunday that we were here, and the church looked massively different. In fact, I got a picture, and I got many pictures we're going to show this morning, but I got a picture of that first Sunday, and you can kind of see Shayna and I was skinnier, I had more hair, and looked better. My wife is still amazingly beautiful. She's not changed one bit with 2 kids. Isn't that awesome? But we were in a different looking church, as you can tell. I was asking folks this week who were here as I was trying to figure out how many folks remember what the church looked like, and almost nobody does, because almost nobody was here back during that time. A few of you were, but not many. And the pastors who are installing us, that's our very first Sunday. And the pastors who are installing us are Craig and Rachel Butler. They were our small group and discipleship pastors at the time. They've since moved on to Victory Church down in Florida. But you can see the difference. We had changing rooms on the stage. We had mauve carpet. We love that color mauve up here, buddy. It was everywhere. I called it the Pepto carpet because it looked like a little Pepto-Bismol. And just to remember where we came from, I left a little bit in the sound booth. You can actually see it today. So we had the Pepto carpet everywhere. We had chandeliers hanging in the pews, and all the pews had the placards, the Smith family, the Jones family, that kind of thing. They were all over the place, and that's kind of what our church looked like. And so Shayna and I, we got to talking a little bit because I had realized that as I was starting off here, I'd come to the office, and I'd always see people fishing in the pond, which was fine. Like, I don't care. And I thought, this is great. I'll get a chance to talk to people in the community. I quickly discovered that the people in the pond were fishing because they thought that there was no church. They thought we were closed or inactive. They never saw anybody here, which is not a good thing, right? And so one Sunday, I think I'd been here 3 weeks. There was one Sunday I walked out of church with Shayna, and I just looked at her and I said, honey, just be honest, would you come to church here? If you didn't have to come, would you come to church here? And nothing against the people, because the people were amazing. But she looked at me and she said, there ain't no way I'd come back to this church. And I thought, good, I wouldn't either, but we're the pastors and that's a problem. So we were 20-somethings, and we realized that we were in the 21st century campus pastors of a church that looked like it was 50 years, older. And it kind of, for us, it brought back memories and emotions of everything we didn't like about church. So we thought if we are called to reach people who are far from God, who've maybe left the church, if we want to build a church with younger people here, man, we're going to have to make some changes. And so we began to slowly make changes. And the first change we made is we got rid of those changing rooms on the stage. The changing rooms were so big, the drummer, which at the time the drums were on that side, he was on the edge, his drum cage was, and he couldn't actually look over to see anybody because he just had a wall right there. So it was crazy. We had to get rid of all that stuff, and so we began to change the stage, and we pulled stuff out of the ceilings. It was kind of fun to demo everything, And we sold all the chandeliers in the main building right here. We had a huge chandelier in the foyer that my grandmother bought. I love her, but that tells you the kind of style that we had. So she bought the chandelier, and then we got the pews, and all the pews that we had. This is what the sanctuary looks like, and you can see the stage opened up there for that first Christmas in 2014. And then we took all the pews, and we said, we got to sell these things. And we did. We sold all the pews, and with that money, we managed to get neutral carpet and chairs, and I still made $10, somebody. Come on, that's pretty good, right? And so I still made a little bit of money. Yeah, all right. Yeah, if you know Larry Burbacher, he was doing cartwheels. Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, so $10. And we weren't done. We still changed some things around. And in fact, just this past spring, it was not a big change. It was a little change. We had our Next Steps wall in the foyer, that we have here. We had a lot of changes in the kids' building that we brought as well. But the reason we did all of that, people would kind of wonder, they said, well, why would we spend money on it? Why would we change things around? I'd tell the vision, whatever. But last year, God spoke to me while I was cutting grass. I know that sounds strange to some of y'all, but God speaks to you in some crazy places. And I was cutting grass in my backyard, and the Lord kind of spoke to me, and he said, hey, you know what? Remember that story of the parable of the talents? I was like, yeah. He's like, hey, you've got that wrong. You focus on the amount. This guy had 10. This guy had 5. That guy had 1. He goes, the amount is not important in that story. Everyone focuses on the amount. The amount's not important. What was important and what got people in trouble was that whatever you are given, there is an expectation you do something with it. Doesn't matter how much God gives you. What matters is what are you doing with what God has given you. And the guy that gets in trouble in the story is the one guy who's given one talent and says, I'm not good enough, it's not enough, whatever. And he sits on it, puts it in the ground, and he gets in trouble because he did not do something with what God gave him. So we said, hey, you know what? We're going to do something with what we've been given. And we're going to do the best we can to have an environment here that draws people in who are far from God that can connect with him. That is diverse, not just with ethnicities and races, but with age and socioeconomics that reflects this community. We worked hard to do that because we believed in doing something with what God has given you. And in those earlier years, it was up and down a lot for me. And I remembered being reminded a lot of a story about a man named Zechariah. And if you look in the Old Testament, you can read about Zechariah. But Zechariah lived in a time where the Babylonian Empire came in, and the Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem. They destroyed the temple. And over 100 years had passed by before any kind of work had begun to rebuild it. And when the rebuilding began, it was slow. It was methodical. It was meticulous. The people kind of felt like, all right, we're not really getting anywhere. We're working hard, but we don't see a whole lot. And so God gives this message to Zechariah, and he says, you go tell the people that you should not despise the small beginnings because the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. It's about doing something, right? It's about taking what you've been given and doing something with it. Begin those steps. And if you read the story of Zechariah, you read about his other contemporaries, Nehemiah and Ezra and Haggai and all those guys. And there's a theme in all of those stories. And one of the themes in the stories is this, that there are yesterdays that the people are constantly reminded of, that they're constantly brought back to, not to live in yesterday, because you can't do that. If you live in yesterday, you'll die. If you live in yesterday, you won't make it. But they're remembering yesterday because yesterdays contain lessons that teach you where and how you should plant in your today. They're important. You have to learn from yesterday. My father-in-law has 13 acres in Pickens County, and he farms about 3 or 4 of them, or he used to anyway, pretty routinely. And some crops were always in the exact same place, never changed. Other crops would move around a little bit because he realized that maybe the soil had too much acidity over here, but it was fine over there. So he would move some crops to different parts of his property because he understood that what he learned yesterday would help him and teach him where and how he should plant today to get a better harvest tomorrow. Your yesterdays are important because they teach you lessons. They show you where you should be in your today, how you should plant in your today. But you cannot cling to that yesterday. If you cling to your yesterday, you won't thrive. There's no such thing as plateauing in your life. If you're not growing, you're dying. Can't go back to yesterday because yesterday's in the past. It's yesterday. You can't relive it. You can't bring it back. It's here and gone. What you got is today, though. And you got the lessons that yesterday teach you to help you where you are today. Here's the problem with clinging to your yesterday. The problem is this: you'll never realize the full potential of the dreams that God has for you if you can't let go of yesterday. Many God-given dreams that have been birthed inside of people never see the light of day because they cannot move from yesterday into today. They're still holding on to what once was, what the past was like, all the good times, the good old days, and they can't embrace where they are today. And those God-given dreams never make it because they refuse to let go and move in to where they are today. Your yesterdays are important because they teach you those lessons on where and how you should plant in your present, in your todays. And we learned a lot here at Faith Moncks Corner, and faith really in general, though, about our yesterdays. There's all kinds of lessons we learned about our community and about our church that helped us get to where we needed to be today. And one of those lessons that we learned was that we had a community that was in need all around us. We didn't know it when I came. The people did, but I didn't know it. But the longer I was here, the more I began to realize there's a lot of folks who could use some help. And so I looked back in my sermon archives, and in January 2014, I'd preached a message, and in this message, I talked about the need to have a food bank. So there's a lot of folks who need help out here, especially this side of the canal. We need to help individuals, and so a food bank was a great way. I thought it's a great way for us to help people. And so not long after that, Bobby and Tina Chapman came up to us and said, hey, we love that. We feel God stirring us to be a part of that. And so they became the food bank directors, and it took a year. So all throughout 2014, we were getting everything ready for it. In December 2014, we had our very first food bank. That's what it was. So for you guys who served in food bank, you probably wonder, how in the world did you do that? Because it's so different today, right? But that's what it was. That was our first food bank. Prepackaged bags and that kind of thing. We had about 50 families that we helped on that very first day. We were so excited. 50 families that we're helping in the community. How great is that? Well, it's grown a lot. In fact, this is the picture from last year in our Thanksgiving outreach. In fact, Food Bank is no longer contained inside that building. Just yesterday, by the way, 200 families received assistance yesterday. 200 families that had help, that were prayed for, that were ministered to. Do you understand the impact? I mean, think about 200 families for a moment. The average family has 4 people in it. Some families have more, some have less. You as a church helped between 500 and 800 individuals in our community because of that. It's incredible because you gave your time, your finances, you gave your talents, you pray for people. Hey, every time I go to Food Bank and I'm there, I always hear people talk about how they are so glad they come to a place where they're a name and not a number. They understand that here we care for people. If you've never served, I want to encourage you. Next Food Bank, they're always the third Saturday of each month. Come on out. You got kids? Dude, this is great for your kids to be a part of. Let them see what it's like to help and give back. Let them be a part of that and minister to people in our community. We learn about helping people, and so Food Bank came about. Well, we also learned, too, about the importance of reaching out to families who may never come to church. You know, when we came to this campus, we thought, well, we don't want to build a church that just reaches church people on Sunday. We got to build a church that reaches people throughout the week. And Food Bank was part of that, but we also established the Moms Morning Out program, which we have now. Moms Morning Out is Monday through Friday every week except for Food Bank weeks. And so we have Moms Morning Out, and Moms Morning Out is for kids ages 6 months to 5 years. And we're preparing those kids for preschool and kindergarten, and they're doing all kinds of great stuff. But for a lot of the kids who come, the only Jesus they get is Moms Morning Out. They pray. They have chapel on Wednesdays where they worship. They learn about God. We weave Christ into all that we do. The director attends our campus. Numerous teachers attend our campus as well through our Moms Morning Out program. And so we launched that as well to reach kids and families throughout the week. And then, of course, because nobody knew our church was even around, which was a problem in 2013. I didn't think it was, but it was. We had to do something to let the community know we were here. But I didn't want to do an event that had strings attached to it. And I met with one of my mentors. His name is Jamie Gardner. He actually preached here for us in June. I met with him in the beginning of October in 2013. He goes, hey, why don't you do like a Hallelujah night? And I was like, man, Hallelujah night. That's probably a good idea. But we're going to change it up a little bit. Because I learned pretty quickly that, one, you can't do a Halloween alternative on Halloween around here. I don't know if y'all know this. Maybe, I'm sure you do, right? Sterling Oaks, Moss Grove. I live in Oak Hill. You know what those neighborhoods are full of? kids, like all over the place. Everyone brings their kids to neighborhoods because we don't have that many out here, or we didn't at the time anyway. And so nobody's coming to your church on Halloween. They're going getting the candy in the neighborhoods. They're going trick-or-treating. So I said, well, that's not going to work on Halloween, so we'll find another time to do it. And so we did. We figured we'll do the Sunday before Halloween. And I didn't want to call it Halloween night because that sounded way too churchy and religious, and I thought, we're not going to do that. And I didn't want to have an event that would preach and be gospel-centered in a very upfront way. That sounds bad to some of y'all, but I want to explain this for a moment. I think it's really important that as a church, there's at least one or two things you do during the year just because you love people. Not because you're trying to get anything out of them, not because you want to find another platform to get all preachy. Just love people and be Jesus to people, and that's it. And so we said we could do all kinds of different ministry stuff, but we're not going to do that. We just want to be community-centered. And so Trunk or Treat came about. Now, I'll never do it again because we had 3 weeks to pull it off. That was crazy, but we did it. In our first Trunk or Treat, we had 150 people, and that's what it looks like. And you can see that was our car, the Gamecock. That was back when the Gamecocks were actually pretty good. It was fun to do that sort of thing. I don't know what those days are like anymore, but that was fun. So 150 folks, though, they came to that first Trunk or Treat. That's pretty incredible. Last year, we had a brand new record last year. Check this out, the picture from last year. We had 2,000 people last year that came. And can I tell you this, that most, 3/4 of the people when they come, they're from our community. Moncks Corner, Bono, St. Stephen, Macedonia, Jamestown. They're from out there when they come out here. And they're coming out and they're having fun. And, you know, it's free to get in. It's free to do it was an hour and a half to get through the trunk line. It was crazy. We're trying to work on that this year. But it's all free. Now, there's a few things you got to pay for because we changed some things around. And, we can't do it on Sunday. It's got to be on Saturday and all that kind of stuff. But we have families who attend our campus today because of Trunk or Treat. I was in Life Point, the last Life Point cycle we had. I talked with a family, and they said, Pastor, we came to Trunk or Treat. That's how we started coming. It's crazy. I'm always running into people like that who began to come and attend Faith Moncks Corner because of what happened in Trunk or Treat. So why do we do all that? Because we're trying to reach people. See, here's the thing, guys. With all the changes that we made as a church over the years, with all the changes that you too will make as an individual, there's one constant will always remain the same, and that's Jesus. He'll never change. The same vision he had for you, the same vision he had for the church yesterday, it's here today. The same mission and calling hasn't changed, and I want you to know this too. The work that God is doing in your life today will position you for what he wants to do in your life tomorrow. It'll get you ready for it. You guys know I'm a pretty avid sports fan. I make no secret of that. Baseball is my favorite. Love baseball. Unique thing about baseball is this. And in the game of baseball, unlike football or basketball, when you draft somebody, they don't get a year one position on your team. You have to take everybody, no matter how talented they are, no matter who they are, everybody has to go through a developmental system called the minor leagues. Everybody has to do that. Why? Because if you put a 19-year-old kid on a major league team and he tries to blow a 98-mile-an-hour fastball by somebody, it's going to be a home run because everybody in the majors can hit a fastball no matter how fast you're throwing it. You got to learn how to mix your pitches and when to throw a fastball, when to do a curve. And you can't have 2 or 3 pitches. You got to have 4 or 5. So you got to learn to develop pitches. As a hitter, you have to learn how to hit some breaking pitches you've never seen before in your life. And so there's so much development you have to do. Everything that you're experiencing in the minor leagues, it is a grind. It's not fun all the time. It's long. It's 4 to 6 years before you get to the majors once you get drafted. You're developing in the minor league system all that time, but all that development you're encountering is preparing you for tomorrow, for when you get the call up. That way you'll be ready when you set foot on that major league field. Sometimes we think we're ready and we're not. God's like, no, bro, you got more development I've got to do in your life. You got more things I got to change inside of you. Sometimes God puts you in your own kind of version of a minor league to develop you and get you ready for what he has for your life. And oftentimes that is our today, where he is developing us and positioning us and changing us because he has a greater tomorrow for us that he wants to put us in. You learn from your yesterdays and you embrace where you are today so you can become who God has called you to be tomorrow. As Christ was in our yesterdays, as he's with us in our todays, he will also be with us in our tomorrows. There's no reason to worry about tomorrow. You know why? Because Christ is already there. He's already in it. He'll be more the same tomorrow because he's been the same yesterday and today. He's constant. You don't lean any less on Jesus in your tomorrow. You lean more on him in your tomorrow. He was faithful yesterday. He's good to us now, but he'll be better to you tomorrow. Tomorrow brings change. Your life will change tomorrow. Your situations will change tomorrow. Your friendships will change. The church will change. Methods will change. Facilities, staff, and pastors, they will all change tomorrow. Styles will change tomorrow. Some changes will be quick. Some will be slow. Some will be fun. Some will be painful. Folks will move in and move out. People will come. People will go. But the one constant that you will have in your tomorrow is that Jesus will always forever be the same. That the calling and the mission will always be the same in your tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow holds, but man, we know who holds tomorrow. If God brought you this far from your yesterday into your today, can you imagine what tomorrow is going to hold? Think about this campus. We bought 7 acres earlier this summer. We didn't buy 7 acres for today. We bought 7 acres for tomorrow. There are new facilities that will be here tomorrow. Not because we like having new buildings, but because people matter. Because I believe tomorrow we'll have a Revive Center in this campus, which will not just work to feed people through our food bank, but will also be a center where we can offer tutoring to kids, be a center where we can clothe people who might need clothing, be a place where we can give job skill training to people who might need it. We are going to be community-minded in our tomorrow. And tomorrow, there'll be God-given favor, I believe, on this church and on your lives. I believe tomorrow holds an expectation of God's power to heal people, to restore broken families, to awaken spirits, and to bring lives into God's kingdom. I believe your tomorrow, this tomorrow for this campus, for this church, holds greater influence than you could ever imagine for this community. I believe that. And so real quick, before we just kind of wrap things up, I've been kind of long today. Before we wrap things up, I just want to give you this. We talked a lot about the church and that kind of thing, but I want to talk about you for a moment. I want to give you 3 quick promises from Hebrews 13:8. You can take home with you that are specifically, I believe, for you. First promise is this, that Jesus redeems all of your yesterdays. You got a yesterday, you got a past, he redeems it all. Good, bad, ugly, wins, failures, things you wish you wouldn't have said, things you wish you wouldn't have done, he redeems it all. You got a clean slate with Christ. He redeems all of your yesterdays. And the second promise is this, that though Jesus can redeem all of your yesterdays, he is more than enough for your today. We can spend our lives trying to get more of everything sometimes. But I'm telling you this morning, Jesus is more than enough for you today. No matter where you might be, no matter what situation you might find yourself in, he's more than enough. Third promise. Quickly, here it is. Jesus is already in your tomorrow. You don't know what tomorrow holds. Your job, finances, health, whatever it is, there's no reason to worry. There's no reason to have anxiety. Why? Because tomorrow, Jesus will be there. if he's brought me this far, he ain't going to leave me. He'll keep me going. He's in my tomorrow. Ashley, come on up. Some of us, we're still living in our yesterdays, you know. And what I would tell you this morning is that if you're still living in a yesterday, let go of it. Let it go. That you can walk into the today that God has. You can learn where to plant in your today, and that you can be developed in your today. Because God's got a better future for you tomorrow. Others of you, you're in your todays. You've kind of understood that. Maybe you've let go of the past. You're not living there. You're not holding on to anything. You get that. But you're in your today. The problem with where you are in your today is you're carrying all kind of burdens you shouldn't carry, right? Things that are holding you down and weighing you down, that are preventing you from really moving into where God has you. Can I just tell you this morning, learn from your yesterday. Didn't God take care of you yesterday? Didn't God save you yesterday? Wasn't God there? Learn from that. Give it over to God and allow him to continue to work inside of your heart today. And then just don't worry about tomorrow. In fact, Jesus even tells us that. He goes, hey, tomorrow brings worry all in itself. Forget about tomorrow. Don't worry about it. He's already there anyway. Learn from your yesterdays. Plant deep in your todays. Why? Because I think there's hope. Incredible hope and reward that God wants you to reap tomorrow.